Emily discovers she's about to be forced into an unwanted wedding, but can she escape this fate? As the alpha, can Four successfully resist the pressure from the council and call off the wedding? How will their relationship evolve? Are you ready to dive into a world of mystery and romance? Subscribe now to join Emily on her thrilling journey. 37 Emily's P.O.V. My teeth chattered together as the cold autumn breeze swept over my bare arms, as I reached out my hand forming a fist and quickly knocking on the small blue door, snatching my hand back, as if someone was going to pull it off. After what felt like a full hour of agonizing anticipation, but what really was a few moments, the door was pulled open to reveal a disheveled-looking Preston. Emily. What's wrong? Is everything okay? God, you're freezing. Preston's voice rushed out as he stepped outside his door, his long slender arms reaching out and taking me by the shoulders, his eyes wandering up and down my body wildly, as if he was physically accessing me to pinpoint anything that could be possibly wrong. Once his eyes finished scanning me, they quickly wandered behind me, as if he was looking for Four. Yeah, everything's fine, I began as Preston let out a breath of relief at my reassuring words. However, he only held onto that relief for a moment, as he held a firm grip onto my arm, and began pulling me inside his house once he noticed the thousands of goosebumps forming as the night air only got colder. What are you doing here by yourself? Did something happen to Four? His stern voice cut mine off, as he closed the front door of his house. His eyes bore into mine as I felt a panic begin to creep in. Maybe he wasn't the best person to go to for this. He was completely loyal to Four. I should have expected that he was going to throw a million questions at me and not let me away that easy. My eyes wandered past him, as my brain worked quickly in order to form an appropriate and viable excuse. Despite the 25-minute walk over to Preston's, not once did my mind wander to the bullshit I was going to have to feed him. I was too busy feeding off my own anger and stubbornness. Four's at a meeting or something. He told me to come here and ask if you would be able to drop me off at my grandma's, that is off the Pact territory. He didn't have time till really late, so he thought that if you were doing nothing else then you could bring me. My voice rushed out as my statement came out more like a question, only adding to how unconvincing it already sounded. However, it was the only thing my brain could muster right now. I held my breath as I watched Preston's face. It scrunched up slightly in confusion, and for a second I thought that my plan was now ruined, and he had caught me out. I felt my stomach fall slightly as I tried to search his eyes for any clues. However, they remained glazed over slightly for a few moments longer, only dragging out the agonizing anticipation that was building up inside me. He's shut everyone out through mind link. Preston muttered, and I let out a deep breath of relief. If Four hadn't have shut everyone out, then this whole thing just would have went south in 2 seconds. I felt a small feeling of guilt beginning to grow in the pit of my stomach the more I filled Preston with lies. He was just an innocent victim in my plan that would no doubt end with him being in a serious amount of trouble. It's all right if you don't have time, I began, as an unsettling amount of guilt began to tear through me, taking over me and clouding my petty thoughts. My childishness shouldn't put other people in danger. What was I even thinking in the first place? Preston had been nothing but nice to me and protected me, and now I was just willing for that to go to shit. No, I have time, let me go grab my keys. How far away is the house? Preston interrupted me as he turned on his heel and headed through a door, probably grabbing the keys to his car. Bloody hell, there was no denying that I had a strong urge to piss Four off and go to my grandma's. I felt like I was finally ready to face my friends back home. I wanted to do things on my terms, when I was ready and when I wanted to. I didn't think it was fair of Four to have that sort of control over me. I know about his secret now. I'm aware that no matter how hard I wished I wasn't attached to him for life, that I was. I couldn't run away. What would be the point? He would never stop looking for me if I managed to get away, and what quality of life would I have then? Always looking over my shoulder. Never getting too comfortable in an area out of fear that I would be found. Pointless. But I had sort of come to terms with it in my head. I know I'm not going to get the college experience, the moving out on my own experience and dealing with life's hurdles. I know all that now. Don't get me wrong, I know 4 is trying and I should be grateful for the freedom I have now, but I can't deny that there is something missing. The feeling of freedom of choosing what I want to do, when I want. Emily. Aren't you coming? Preston's voice interrupted my thoughts as I realized I had been stood staring at the door he had disappeared into earlier, only to find now that he was stood at the front door holding it open, his keys dangling from his hand. Almost as if my mind was speaking rather than the guilt that was now eating me alive, my head quickly moved up and down as I walked towards the front door where Preston had served me a small smile, and all the reassurance I had given and feed myself before that I had to do this disappeared, and my stomach was soon filled with guilt, dread and fear. Jesus, am I that bad of a driver? Preston broke the silence that had riddled the car for the past 15 minutes of driving as I looked at him, my brows furrowed in confusion, as he pointed at my knee that was bouncing up and down at a rapid pace. Yeah, shitty, I replied, smiling over at him, as he let out a breath of laughter as my insides fell apart, and my smile instantly dropped. I was the worst person on the earth right now. You know, when the pack first heard that the alpha had found his mate, I thought it would make him less harsh at pack training, that he would get off our asses for a while, but it only made him work his harder. Even when he wasn't at the pack trainings, because you know it was hard when you didn't know everything, he was in our heads. Pushing and pushing us. Obviously it pissed me off, but it was so obvious what was happening. Since you came, you changed him to be better. Preston spoke, his eyes flickering to meet mine every couple of seconds, as his words sunk into my chest. His words didn't comfort me, which was no doubt his intention and purpose, but only added to the guilt that had filled me. I opened my mouth to tell him that I wanted to go back. I wanted to pretend I never went and lied to Preston. I would just be patient and wait to the weekend to see my grandma. Preston, I began, my voice coming out slow, as my brain fumbled over the words I was about to feed out to Preston. However, I was interrupted by the sound of the engine of the car turning off. Here we are, Preston sighed as I looked up, and sure enough, we were at the end of the driveway to my grandma's house, the locked gate preventing Preston from driving up to the front door. I'm sorry, I let out as I pulled of my seatbelt, yanking the door open. I couldn't help myself. Even if he didn't realize the real intent around my apology right now, he would no doubt soon know once he faces Four's wrath. For what? He questioned, his eyebrows furrowed in confusion. He was so innocent in the mess I had just purposely got him caught up in. For bothering you, I forced a small smile on my face, as I had successfully hopped out of Preston's car, and was now leaning on the window to see his face. What are friends for? He threw one last smile as I backed away from the car, and the last remaining piece of decency I had left in me shredded. I had just fed my friend to the dogs. I took a deep breath as I turned on my heels. Coming here didn't even seem worth it anymore. I was a shit person for throwing Preston under the bus like that, feeding him lies, which would no doubt end up with him hurt, and with what advantage? No doubt I would only be here for what? A mere half an hour before Four realized, and I would be back there anyway. This was my fault, no one to blame but myself. I forced my legs to move and walked towards the gate. I made my way over to the small plant holder, my hand fishing in blindly in search for the spare key I knew was kept in here. Darkness had fully swept over, and the light and protection from Preston's car was now gone. My hands soon clasped around the cold metal, as I made my way over to the lock on the gate, my hand dragging across it, acting like a map, as I fumbled around, pathetically failing at getting the key to even line up with the lock. Having a bit of trouble. A deep voice felt like a roar in the silence, as it sent shivers down my spine, the hot breath bouncing of my neck as I felt my hands go numb and the key fell to the ground. I felt a hand being forced over my mouth, as their body heat transcended over to me. My heart fell out of my chest as I flailed around in the person's strong grip, until my eyes finally caught sight of whose arms were around me. I closed my eyes almost in relief mixed with shock as I pried his hand from my mouth, as I turned my body to face the familiar face, which I never thought I would get to see again. Dylan, I breathed out, squinting my eyes. Even in the darkness, I could determine his distinctive features. I don't know if I should be overjoyed that he was the one that found me or scared. Was he still the same Dylan? 38 Emily's P.O.V. You scared me, I barely managed to get out in a sentence, as he had now released his grip on me, and was now fumbling around on the ground in search of the key he had made me drop. Shit, I didn't mean to sneak up on you. His voice sounded different, deeper or something as he now straightened up to his full height. I couldn't make out his facial expressions in the dark night, but I could just imagine his small smirk playing on his lips. I shook my head, taking in a deep breath of almost relief. Part of me was happy to see him, know that after what happened he was still okay. However, my relief was soon washed away by panic. No doubt in less than 10 minutes Four would be here. Are you stupid? Are you trying to get yourself killed? My voice now sounded like thunder in the silent air as I attempted to lean forward and push his shoulders. He began, as he caught my hands that were trying to hit him, using it to pull me towards him. Four is going to be here soon, please Dylan, leave. Do you not remember what happened? Are you full of something? My mind raced as I was now shouting at Dylan, if Four wasn't going to kill him before he defiantly would now. Calm down, Emily, he breathed out, as he sounded like he was suppressing a laughter at my claims. What are you honestly laughing at? I snapped, pulling my hands away from his, crossing them over my body, as now the cold air had hit me. My previous numb feeling of being potentially kidnapped had faded. I just missed you. His laughing was now gone, and his arms were now wrapped around my body, his heat warming my shivering body, as I felt his hot breath down my neck. I felt myself lean into him as I took a deep breath. Nothing had changed, he was still the same Dylan. After a few seconds of forgetting the situation, and remembering how when I was stuck up in that room, not having a notion where I was, why I was there, or that I was surrounded by wolves, Dylan was there. He kept my company, and when he did something to protect me, I took my anger out on him. Hey, I felt Dylan's warm fingers rub my face, as I realized tears were now spilling out of my eyes. I'm sorry. You have to go. I pushed his hands off my face as I turned on my heel. He was okay, and that was all that mattered, and he needed to get as far away as possible. Emily, Dylan's voice shouted after me as I turned my head to see his silhouette holding out his arm towards me. The key. Four has just rang me, Emily. He will be here in 5 minutes, my grandma called from the bottom of the stairs as I peeked my head out of the bathroom door. After a 10-minute shouting from my grandma, I realized I would only have a few minutes to change my clothes before Four would get here. I read that werewolves can instantly know the smell of another werewolf, and I wanted to make sure there was no trace of Dylan on me. I looked at my reflection in my mirror, rubbing my puffy red eyes at an attempt to look like I hadn't been crying. Grandma claims that she didn't notice I was outside the gate literally shouting at someone, however I don't know if I believe her. Will you come out to the car with me? I shouted down to my grandma, as I pulled the jogging bottoms on my legs and tossing the leggings I had on to the side. If Grandma was there, Four maybe wouldn't shout at me as much. You got yourself into this, Emily, she called from the kitchen, as her voice tailed off at the end, no doubt scolding me some more on how I was being stupid, and that being too greedy would end up hurting me. I thought of all people, she would understand me wanting to see and talk to my family. I sighed as a bright light shined through the bathroom window, peeking my head and spraying perfume on my clothes. My eyes landed on Four's truck. Shit, I mumbled as I watched as the truck came to a stop, and my eyes focused on Four sitting in the front seat of the car. From here I could tell by his clenched jaw and tight grip he held on the wheel it wasn't going to be good. I turned on my heels, peeking my head around so I could see the bottom of the stairs to see my grandma walking towards the front door, as Four's loud pounding echoed through the house. I closed my eyes. What did I honestly expect? He had already given way for so many things, and I possibly just blew it because of my head being too big. I took a deep breath as I strained my ears to hear the low mumbling going on at the front door, before I heard it close again, and my grandma returned at the bottom of the stairs, with a bag in her hand. I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion, as I met her downstairs taking the bag out of her extended hand, as I peered around the wall to see if Four was standing there, but I was met with nothing. "You're staying the night?" My grandma attempted to suppress the grin that was forming on her face, as she didn't want to justify my actions earlier. "Are you serious?" I could barely believe the words that had left her mouth. Did Four get hit with a truck or something? What in the world was letting him allow me to stay over at Grandma's? I walked over to the window and peered out to see Four's truck hadn't moved from the position it was in and the lights were now shut off. The only light I could see was Four's phone shining up onto his face as he stared down on it. Was he planning on staying out there the whole night? I instantly felt a wave of guilt wash over my body. He was trying his best. Yeah, he frustrates me, but he was trying, and now after I left without telling him, he was letting me stay. I quickly grabbed a coat of the hanger and pulled it around my body and shoved a pair of boots onto my feet that were sitting at the front door. I felt as if I went out he would see me and remember how angry he was and take me back home, but the guilt that was now swimming around me would not let me go upstairs and ignore it. I pulled open the front door, instantly being met by the bitter night air, as I kept my eyes pinned to the ground. Feeling his burning stare on me made me want to turn around and run back inside, but I forced my feet to move forward until I reached the door of the truck. Quickly pulling it open and jumping on the seat before I could convince myself to back out. I was met with silence. The only noise filling the car was my heavy breathing and the running of my hands together in an attempt to feel some heat. Four must have picked up on this as he turned the car on, the heat blasting. "I'm sorry, it was stupid, I know. I didn't," I began, my voice rambling as my mind raced. There was nothing that I could say that would justify what I did. "It doesn't matter." Four's softness laced in his voice surprised me as he cut me off. "You're not angry?" I asked, allowing my eyes to meet with his now that I had confirmed from his voice that they would not be filled with anger. I was. Four's short direct reply stung slightly as I searched his eyes, but found nothing. I was confused. I would rather him scream at me and bring me back home rather than have no type of emotion from him. "I'm sorry," I repeated because I didn't know what else to say. I could tell he wasn't tuned in fully, as his eyes were glazed over slightly for a couple of seconds before he shifted in his seat, averting his eyes away from mine. "Go inside, it's cold." Four sighed as he turned his phone on once more, his hands typing furiously on the screen, almost pounding into it. "You're not going to come in?" I asked. I knew if I was staying here tonight he would do the same in his truck, but it was freezing and my guilt was slowly eating away at me from the inside. He didn't respond, only shook his head signaling a no. He had never been this dry and off with me, and whatever was happening back at the house must have been angering him further, as he was releasing short puffed breaths as he typed. I pulled open the door and slid off the seat and shut the door behind me. I never thought I would see the day where I would be trying to get Four to talk to me. Usually the roles were reversed. I walked around the truck, glancing up at Four to see his eyes still glued to his screen, but quickly shift when I pulled open his door. "Please come in," I tried one last time. He had now turned off the light of his phone, the only light coming from the small one in the car, as he stared ahead, as if he was debating my offer, when I saw the sides of his jaw turn up slightly, and I knew that he had forgot his anger for now. 39 Emily's P.O.V. I raised my hand to knock on the familiar door now. A sense of dread and fear fueled by my guilt had eaten me away on my way here, and now I just wanted it to swallow me whole. Not only had I blank out lied to Preston, but I knew what Four would do and what he is capable of. Look what he did to Dylan, and I still used him to get what I wanted. My thoughts were interrupted, however, when before my hand could knock on the door it swung open, revealing Preston's large stance, as if he was already anticipating me knocking. My eyes traveled up to his face as if to access his physical state. I took a deep breath of relief when I saw all was clear. He was okay. "Hey," I mumbled after a few minutes of awkward after not one of us made a move. He gave me a small smile in return, which quickly dropped after a few seconds, as he stepped out of the door revealing a bag slung over his shoulder before turning his back to me and shutting it. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I asked as he had now turned and was walking down his little steps and onto the pathway at a quick speed. "Sorry, Alpha called a pack training in 10 minutes." He didn't even turn his head to look at me, but kept focused on the pathway ahead, walking around the slow-moving others on the path. I couldn't even blame him. "I'll walk with you," I exclaimed in a slightly louder voice as I attempted to weave my way through the large amounts of people, ignoring the burning stares I was receiving. "If Alpha sees me talking to you," he began, as he had now stopped allowing me to catch up to him. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have dragged you into it. I lied to you and got you into shit that you hadn't a clue about. I should have thought about you, but I just thought about my own selfish self. Please don't be pissed off with me. You're one of the only people I actually like here, and don't think will murder me," I panted out in one breath, mostly so I could say everything without forgetting and the fact that I was out of breath from trying to catch up with him. My pace was that fast I'd be surprised if he could even make out a word I was saying. We were both now standing still on the path, the silence filled by the noise around us and mostly my heavy breathing. Spending months up confined in like 2 rooms really does you no favors. I never thought I would care about what people here threw about me, but I realized that my actions can harm them, and Preston didn't deserve Four's anger. 2 months ago I wouldn't have cared. My main goal was to get out of this place. Now that I realized that was never going to happen, I had to realize there were people too with emotions and feelings. "You're forgiven, you dick." Preston's words instantly made me feel better, and reminded me I had to be a better person. Just because I was hurting doesn't mean I had to hurt other people. "Preston, you're not going to regret it," I smiled as I leaped at him in a hug. After the whole Dylan thing, I didn't think I could find another person I could fully trust here, but now I know I can trust Preston. I didn't realize I had hugged him with such force that he winced slightly, his face screwing up with pain, which he quickly tried to cover with a smile. I quickly let go, my eyebrows screwing together in confusion, as I reached my hand out, with the intent of poking him in the ribs, only for his hand to stop me. "Intense workout last night?" "A bit," so he breathed. I opened my mouth to question him slightly, then shut it when I realized he wasn't going to tell me the truth. I knew he was lying. You couldn't be that sore from a workout, plus he was a wolf. How could he be in that much pain? My thoughts immediately went to Four, and what he probably did to him, when he realized he was the one who brought me to Grandma's, and instantly another wave of guilt began to spread in me. I just nodded. It was my fault. I had to be more careful, not only for me, but for the people I had grown to care about here. I almost got Dylan killed, and now Preston got hurt because of me. "See you later," he asked, breaking the silence I didn't even realize was between us, as I had even lost in my own mind. I nodded, smiling, before he took off in the direction I'm guessing the training was at. "Heard about your little escape the other night. Thought we weren't that bad anymore," was the first thing Wes said as I sat down at the table at break time, causing the rest of them to laugh, and me throw a dirty look at him. "Shut up," I replied, which caused more laughter from them. Being here at school with my new friends, I think, made me feel like a normal teenager, and reminded me that wolves were not the monsters I had formed in my mind, and made me feel happier. "Honestly didn't think you would have it in you," Anton added, causing further laughter, as I elbowed him in his side. I was glad I met them. They treated me like a normal 17-year-old and didn't let their fear of Four stop them from acting normal around me. Not joking, I think they were the only ones in this whole school who weren't afraid of him, from the jokes they made to their questions. I wasn't escaping Dick. I just wanted to go to my grandma's for a while, I defended myself, as I turned around seeing Preston leaning against the far wall, his eyes dropping down to his phone when he seen me looking, no doubt listening to the conversation, as he had a small smile on his face and shook his head. "You better start planning a better escape plan. For 3 weeks, was piped up once again, as the laughter died down, and Terry shot him a dirty look, and soon after he let out a wince of pain. "What was that for?" he asked as Terry once again threw him the dirtiest look. I'm assuming she had kicked him under the table. What was he talking about? After silence entered the table for a few minutes, I racked my brain trying to work out if Four had mentioned something that was meant to be in 3 weeks, but I couldn't think of anything. I knew it had to be serious when Wes and Anton didn't try to make further jokes about it, but what? What's in 3 weeks? I asked, interrupting the silence that now swallowed the whole table, which was just followed by an exchange of looks between the three, and more silence. This was the first time I had ever seen them actually be really scared of something, like they told me something that I wasn't supposed to know. What could be worse than finding out that they were wolves? Just tell me, I tried once again, as I began to grow slightly worried with a bit of anger. They can't bring it up, and then not tell me and expect me to be okay with that. Emily, I thought you knew. I really don't want Four to find out that I told you. He would literally kill me. Wes' tone was laced with worry as he broke the silence. It was literally eating at me, not knowing what he was talking about. I felt my selfish side crawling forward and demand to know what he was talking about, but then I remembered Preston, and what Four did to him. No, it's fine. I'll just ask for myself, I smiled. If I just asked him, no one would get hurt, but if I made Wes tell me, then he could get hurt, and it would be my fault. Your wedding, Emily, it's your wedding, Terry blurted out after another few moments of silence, as no one knew how to pick up the conversation again. Her words made me go pale, and I felt like the whole room had gone silent. I felt like I heard her wrong, because I knew she couldn't have been talking about me. Emily, are okay? I felt Preston's hand on my shoulder pushing me slightly as I realized almost everyone had gone from the room now. The bell must have gone, and Preston stood beside me as I felt like someone had literally slapped me in the face to remind me that I wasn't in control. And Four was the biggest dick I had ever met. 40 Emily's P.O.V. I felt my anger boil at the sight of seeing Four on my way home from school. It was only break time, but I stormed out after I tried to calm down for a few minutes, but my anger grew until I had to get out of there. I felt trapped. I had been rehearsing what I was going to scream at Four when I seen him, from not mentioning the fact that my wedding day was supposedly in 3 weeks. But now that I seen him, as he unloaded boxes from a large van onto the ground outside a shop, all I wanted to do was run over and punch him. I knew it would hurt it. I did it, though I would only end up hurting myself. As I became closer to him, I seen him look up through the crowd of people that were already gathered here. I don't know how he saw me, or maybe he could hear my heavy breathing, but his eyebrows crinkled together, probably wondering why I was out of school already, and maybe I looked angry from the outside. What's wrong? Did something happen? He asked as he stopped what he was doing and started walking towards me. His question was innocent, but I don't know how he didn't know what I was angry about. How long did he think he could not tell me this? Why didn't you tell me? I thought you weren't going to lie to me anymore. I began my rant, ignoring his question, as I felt my vision turn blurry, as a result of the anger I was feeling. This wasn't a little lie, this was something for the rest of my life. If he thought for a second I was going to agree to marry him, he was very wrong. Wasn't me being here, and not running every chance I got enough. Something must have clicked in Four's head, as he closed his eyes, taking a deep breath, before he chose how to respond to me. Instead of the bullshit I threw he was going to begin feeding me, he grabbed my hand, and began walking towards a building. If this was any other time, I would have been angry, but I wanted answers, and if going away from staring people was going to get me answers, I would follow. Once we were in an empty office building, he let me go and took a deep breath, as guilt was laced over his face, but that didn't make me feel any better. I was going to tell you, he began, and I felt my anger push my rational side away, and I felt my emotions take over. Don't feed me that bullshit, Four. You knew this the whole time, and you didn't think that maybe you should tell me. Ask my permission on it. Or, as usual, treat me like a bloody child. I felt my voice rising, as it bounced off the small walls that surrounded us, as I began to pace throughout the room. Knowing that I had no other choice, but to accept this was my life from now on was one thing, and I still even struggle after months, but marriage. At 17. My mind couldn't stop racing at the fact that I was being forced to do this, and I had only 3 weeks to stop this. Emily, I didn't tell you because I've been trying to get it stopped for weeks, and I didn't want to stress you even more cause I know how you would take this shit. For cut me of his voice slightly raised as I could tell from his clenched jaw that he was getting angry. What do you mean trying? For isn't it your bloody decision? I didn't understand what he was saying, which only frustrated me even more. I've already pushed it back as much as I can. I've been talking with the council to get it removed, but I don't have a say. It's a tradition that's been in this pack since it started. They are not going to listen to some 20-year-old alpha that's already trying to change things, he explained, the council. What did he mean by that? I'll keep trying, love, but believe me, I don't really want to get married, as well, he continued, which made my anger soften a little bit. Why has he never told me about this council before? Why did they get a say in my literal marriage? What's the council? I asked. I felt tears forming in my eyes as my voice wobbled slightly. If this was beyond 4, there was definitely nothing I could do about it. Hey, don't cry, love, I'll sort it, okay? He ignored my question, as he pulled me towards him for a hug. I couldn't help but doubt his words. How could he sort it out if it was a rule even he had to follow? Who even is the council, and why do they get the final say? I raved to Preston, as he sat on his sofa looking past me and at the TV. He was defiantly tuning me out. I had probably asked this question to him 4 times in the past jaw I had been here, and I still couldn't wrap my head around the fact that a group of old wolves got the ultimate vote when it came to pack traditions. Emily, there is nothing at this moment of time you can do. If Alpha is talking to them, just be patient and wait till he comes back. Try take your mind of it. Preston attempted once more to change the topic and reassure me at the same time. I sighed, flopping down on the sofa beside him. He was right. I was used to having no control here, but knowing that even now 4 had no control over this made me even more scared. What would happen if they didn't listen to him? What would he do then? I shook the thoughts out of my head, for now I had to stop thinking about it. I was going to Grandma's tonight, so I guess I'd have her to talk to it about. Then it flashed in my mind, Dylan could be there. I looked over at Preston, who sat staring at the TV, still his focus on whatever show he was watching. I knew he would never tell 4 if I asked about Dylan. He wasn't like that. Have you heard from Dylan? I asked before I could stop myself from bringing up 4's banished brother, and surprisingly Preston didn't even flinch at the mention of his name. But he continued, keeping his gaze on his TV, as if I had just talked about something so normal. Have you? He asked after just a few seconds of silence filled up by the annoying show that was still playing on the TV. Asked you first, I reminded him. You're one of the most annoying lunars this pack is ever going to have. I'm actually a bit concerned for what 4 has to go through every day. I'm lucky I only have to deal with you for a few hours. Preston begins to say, a small smile playing on his face, an attempt to shift the conversation once more, which fortunately does not go unnoticed by me. Shut up, I cut him off, reaching my foot over and kicking him in his leg, which caused him to break into more laughter. I remember, when I met him I thought it was weird he followed me around all day at school, but now I don't know what I would do without him. I've talked to him a few times, but you didn't hear that from me. Preston's laughter had died down now, and he carried his serious tone he used when he spoke on the phone. He was at Grandma's that night you dropped me off. You didn't hear that from me either. Do you know where he is staying? I asked. I was surprised someone as uptight as Preston would even admit, let alone talk to someone that had been made a rogue. I honestly still really didn't understand the term of this rogue thing. All I knew that I should never bring up Dylan's name to 4 if I didn't want it to end up in an argument. If I did know, and I'm not saying I do, you would be the last person I'd tell. Knowing you, I'd wake up tomorrow with my car gone and 4 knocking down my door. Preston joked. Well, I hope he was. I mean, I really couldn't blame him. Lucky for you I can't drive, I jeered. I tried to tell him to stay away from here. If anyone catches him in the pack, or if Four knew that he had talked to you, Emily, he would be killed. He's a rogue now, and even if Four didn't want to kill him, he would have to. So if I were you, I wouldn't be brining this up with Four. For Dylan's sake. Preston went back to his serious tone, as he switched the TV off, getting up of his seat. It's my fault that this happened to him. I blamed him, and was angry at him, I began, but Preston put his finger up to his mouth to tell me to shut up. My eyebrows furrowed in confusion, as he walked over to the door, opening it to reveal Four's truck pulling up outside his house. I shook my head. I would literally never get used to these people's incredible hearing. Don't think this conversation is over, I reminded him in the quietest voice I could as I got up from my position on the sofa and walked towards the front door. If he was talking to Dylan, then he could let me do it next time. Didn't think so, Emily, he replied, shaking his head before closing the door behind me and leaving me to a red-faced Four in his truck, his arms clenched as he watched me walk out of the house. This was not good. 41 Four's P.O.V. She's a girl, a human, still in school, and you expect her to marry me in 3 weeks, when she only just found out about the werewolves. I'm alpha of this pack, and if I want more time, I will get it. I felt my voice rising, as my chest pushed up and down, as I tried my best to restrain myself from jumping over the table. Alpha, it was your choice not to tell the girl about the wolves, and you were aware of the marriage traditions in this pack for months. The time is up and we have gave you extensions. This decision is ours, one of the elders spoke, only adding to my rising anger, as I began to rise of my seat, my hands shaking from the rage. I felt Finn, my beater, hand place on my shoulder, as he attempted to rein me in from my rage, reminding me that physically, if I was too hurt one of them, it wouldn't be good. Yes, I was alpha, but they were the council. I had no control over the traditions. I looked at them before I shook my head, leaving the room, Finn following behind, as he tried to assure me that it would be fine. I've already did so much shit to her, and they aren't going to change their mind. I'm going to have to do something. You should have seen the look on her face when she told me she knew, I sighed, blurring out Finn's attempts to make it seem better. 4. When you think of it, it's only a marriage. A few words to please them and get them off your case for a while. It doesn't mean anything. His words were less than what I needed to hear right now. I had already forced her to do so many things. I knew that this was too much for her. I didn't even want to get married. It's not just a few words to her. I raised my voice at him slightly. This wasn't his fault, but I had to put my anger somewhere. We can figure something out, he tried to reassure me. I was always grateful of Finn, and I knew he would always try for me, but in this case there was nothing he could do to make it any better. This was my fault. I knew this whole time and refused to face it. I could have told her months, or even weeks ago, and we wouldn't be in this position. I thought things were good and I didn't want to mess them up even more, but that's what I do. I brought nothing but pain to her. Anything bad that happened to her has been my fault. How could I force her into this? Yeah, she knew that mates was a forever thing, but a marriage. She was barely to terms with everything as it was. Emily's P.O.V. Love, please don't cry. Four's voice followed me as I walked fast to the bedroom. He had just told me that the council hadn't changed their mind, and that there was nothing that could make them want to stop it. I tried to hold it in when we were in the car, but as soon as we got into his house I just felt myself break down. It didn't feel like it was happening to me. I wanted him to leave me alone for a while. He just reminded me of what was going to happen, and as much as I knew it wasn't up to him, I couldn't help but feel he was a cause. What do you want me to do? I remarked, putting my anger on him. It was easy because I knew he could take it. But I didn't know what he expected me to do, be happy that I was being forced into a marriage. Baby, don't walk away. Talk about it. Four's attempt only made me worse. I wanted to turn around and hit him. He was prepared for this, I wasn't. What 17-year-old thinks that they are going to get married? You took everything I had away from me. I had no choice but to stay here because of you, and now I have no choice but to do this. I honestly don't know how this is now surprising me at this stage. I never turned around or stopped walking until I reached the door and turned around to see he was still beside the elevator. I didn't want to be nasty, it just came out. He looked more hurt by my words than anything else. I don't think I had ever made him silent before. Maybe he was holding back because of the tears that were rolling down my face at a fast pace, or because he didn't know how to reply to me. I promise that I won't tell Alpha, but please be quick. I'll stall Preston, so you can get out, but he follows you around all day. How do you expect me to be able to do it for long? Terry muttered as she peered out the door to make sure she couldn't see Preston after I begged her for the past 2 hours to tell me where a council member lived so I could talk to them myself. It's been a few days since Four told me that there was nothing he could do to stop the marriage. He had already extended it, and they weren't changing their minds. After tell him that I'm taking a quiz or something. I'll be back in an hour, I won't be long. I tried to reassure her. I knew if Preston knew of my plan he would try stop it or tell Four, and I didn't want him to get involved. So if I didn't tell him he wouldn't get in trouble. Please be quick, or I'm telling him you threatened me, or something. Terry pushed me out the door, after she confirmed that she couldn't see Preston. Because he will believe that I mumbled trying to be quiet, as I walked down the hall towards the front door. Honestly, I'm surprised I even managed to get away from Preston to go to the toilet. This had to be it. This was the third house that fit Terry's shit description, and even worse directions, which had led me to knocking on 2 completely wrong houses that looked like they had seen a ghost when they opened the door. I quickly pushed myself towards the front door. It took me almost 10 minutes to give myself enough confidence to knock on each door. I hadn't really planned on what I was going to say, but I mean, how else can I say what is wrong with you making a 17-year-old get married? That doesn't sound like I'm being a brat. Before I could talk myself out of it, I reached up, knocking the door, half thinking that it wouldn't be the right house, and that I shouldn't be this nervous. After a few seconds the door swung open to reveal an older-looking man, maybe in his 60s, or so, and my heart literally fell when I realized this was the right house. My mind wanted to scream out so many things at him, yet I could barely open my mouth. Nothing was coming out, and I didn't know why. I probably looked like such a dick standing here staring at him, not saying anything. Did he know who I was? My mind was so busy trying to force myself to say something when a familiar sound of a laugh almost forced me out of my silence, and I looked over the man to see an older woman, and Four walking towards the door. He didn't see me for a minute, and I wish in that minute I was smart enough to turn around and walk away and pretend I wasn't there, but of course I remained frozen. "What are you doing here?" he asked once he saw me standing at the front door. I wanted to ask him the same thing, but he had already grabbed my hand, pulling me away from the house. "I was looking for you." I tried to come up with a shitty lie, which he saw through straight away, as he stopped leaning against a random car, folding his arms over each other. "And why didn't you go to the house?" he asked. His tone already told me that he was playing alone with my lies. He knew what I was doing. But why was he there? He didn't seem angry when he was inside, and his mood wasn't bad at the minute, and usually, when he is with the council, it never ends with him being happy. "Why are you here? I thought you said that there was nothing you could do." I ignored his question as my suspicion increased. Was he putting on his anger towards them only in front of me to make it look like he was against it too? "Oh, so you can ask me questions now about my own pack?" "Answer mine first," he demanded as he pushed himself off the car, as I had took a few steps back. His chest was now rising up and down faster, and I could tell he was getting angrier. I wanted to talk to them, see if there was anything I could say to change their mind. I sighed. Honestly, what was the point of lying anymore when he was going to be pissed anyway? He closed his eyes for a brief second, and when he opened them again it was as if his anger had gone away. Well, not fully. I could see his fists still clenched at his sides, but his chest wasn't falling as heavy, and he unclenched his jaw. "I told you to stay out of it, didn't I? You're really lucky I got there before you did, and I didn't have to be told that my mate was shouting at a council member, losing everyone chance we had of getting you out of this marriage." He shook his head as I think I near fainted when I heard his words. I thought you said they weren't going to change their minds. I asked, almost cutting him off, as I started to already get my hopes up that he had finally got them to see what a bad idea this was. I didn't let him reply before I leaped forward, wrapping my arms around his neck in a hug before my moment of joy was cut off by Four's lack of happiness. They didn't change their minds about the marriage thing, but I found a way around it that didn't involve you. His words made me take a few steps back. What was he talking about? I'm getting married to a Luna. It's just not going to be you. He sounded like the words were forced to come out of his mouth, like it hurt him to even say them to me. 42 Emily's P.O.V. I thought those words were exactly what I wanted to hear for the last few weeks, but now that I was actually hearing them, they never brought the happiness and relief I thought I would feel. Well, that's a lie. For a second I felt relieved that what I thought was going to be the end of my freedom wasn't going to happen, but after that I was left with a shitty feeling in my stomach. I didn't know what it was at that time, and for a while after, until I managed to ask Terry about it when it wouldn't go away, and was only growing stronger, and she told me it was the mate bond, so it wasn't my fault, and I decided it wasn't how I actually felt. But in that moment I didn't want to actually tell Four. I actually wasn't going to tell Four, because I knew he had worked so hard to make me happy, and I honestly was grateful that I wasn't going to have to do it. At the time we didn't really talk about it. I could tell Four didn't want to do. I just thanked him, but now it was like only a few days before the wedding, and I knew he was going to want to talk about it soon. I was currently at my grandma's, where I had spent most of my time for the last while. Surprisingly, I had stayed here for a few days now, and Four hadn't objected to it, probably because he knew that it was weird back at the house. Everyone was getting ready for the wedding, the usual stuff. Only when they seen me they would stop, as if I would get offended by it. My mind was telling me I didn't have an issue, and this was what I wanted, but I could shake the heavy feeling I had that reminded me it was only going to get harder as time went by. Four rang earlier. He's lifting you so you can go back for tonight, but he's dropping you off again tomorrow, Grandma informed me, as she walked into the living room, where I had lay for the last few days watching TV and FaceTiming my family. I knew the wedding was the day after tomorrow, so at least I wouldn't have to see it. Yay, I mumbled, earning a smack to the head by Grandma, as she attempted to tidy the mess that I created since I've been here. Did you enjoy your break away from me? Four broke up the silence that filled up his truck since he lifted me. I knew it was going to be awkward, but I didn't know how awkward. Unfortunately, it wasn't long enough. I attempted to lift the mood that was already set in the car. I didn't know why this was such a shit thing. Four let out a breath of an almost laugh, and it almost felt like it was before all of this mess, when I knew about the wolves and I was getting to do more things on my own. Almost. For the next half an hour the car remained in silence until I realized that if we were driving back to the house then we would have gotten there by now. I wasn't really paying attention to the road, as I was lashing with rain, but as I looked at the roads I realized that I didn't know where we were. Where are we going? I asked, looking over at Four. I wasn't panicking, I was just confused. The pack house is a mess right now with everything, but I wanted to see you tonight, so thought a long drive away from it could help. Four sighed, one of his hands on the wheel and the other on his head. He looked physically and mentally tired, and I knew I was a part of the blame. I knew he wasn't thrilled about getting married either, but I knew if I wasn't so upset about it then he wouldn't have been, and if this was more normal to me he would be fine about it. Sorry for making you do all this, I replied. Don't, it's my fault that all of this even happened anyway, love. I should have told you about it sooner. We are going to have to talk about it though. He tried to make a small smile, in an attempt to try and make me not feel as bad. Do we have to? I asked, already knowing what the answer would be. The feeling I had in my stomach only got worse when I thought about it. Like when I was at my grandma's for the past few days, I wasn't really thinking about it, but as soon as I seen Four he reminded me, and my stomach dropped again. I didn't know what it was making me feel like this. I asked for it to be stopped. What else did I want? Nothing. For us changes, okay? I know it's probably going to be awkward with the other pack members because something like this hasn't happened before, but tell me if anyone says anything. This marriage isn't going to be a proper one as such. She's going to be Luna of the pack, so you don't have to be involved with anything to do with the wolves. I'll try limit your contact with each other as much as possible, because even though you might not care, the mate bond will hurt for a while and you're human, so you can't take that pain. He ignored me and began explaining everything, not taking his eyes off the road once, as if he was scared to even look at me. How much pain are we talking? Was the other thing I really took from him. I wasn't great with dealing with pain. Actually, that was a lie. I did care. I don't know if it was this stupid mate thing, but I just wanted him to stop talking about it. During the wedding, the doctor said you're going to feel like shit, so I was thinking that you should stay at the pack house just in case you need me, he began. I knew from his time of voice he was trying to downplay the pain I was going to be feeling, but the last thing I wanted was to be stuck there while everyone was at the wedding. Unless you want me to be a flower girl or something, it's probably best I stay at Grandma's. I cut him off, afraid that he was going to make his mind up about me staying there, trying to lighten the mood. Don't joke about this. You're going to be in a lot of fucking pain, and if I'm not there to help if I need to, then what will happen? Four snapped, his head finally turning from looking at the road to looking at me, his eyes now pure gold, as he grip on the wheel tightened, his arms clenched. What will you honestly be able to do for? You're going to be a bit busy, I pushed back, sounding a bit more spiteful than I intended. What do you honestly want me to do, Emily? You didn't want to get married, so I thought of the only solution I could, and I understand it isn't the best option, but I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for you. And I can't let you stay at your grandma's knowing you're in pain, when as soon as the ceremony is done I can come and take some of the pain away, he sighed, his voice rising slightly. I knew this was just as hard on him as it was on me. He didn't want to get married, and just to make me happy he was going through with it with someone else, so I needed to understand he was annoyed. I'll stay at Preston's, I shrugged, trying to stop this argument before it even started. I can't imagine the amount of stress Four is under, and I hadn't thought about that since he took the weight of my shoulders. He's still a person too, and it wasn't fair that he even had to do this. Close your eyes please, I tried to persuade Four, who was currently at his desk, after he refused to put on the blindfold I had suggested at first, claiming that in case of a pack emergency he needs to be on alert at all times. What for? He asked again, leaning back in his chair. It's a surprise for a reason please, it's in the kitchen. I reached out, grabbing his hand, trying to pull him up before he completely said no. He rolled his eyes, letting me pull him up and drag him to the bedroom door, when I turned around and signaled for him to close his eyes, which took a few more seconds, and a convincing smile from me to do so. I grabbed his hand, swinging open the door, turning around to make sure he still had his eyes closed, and finding that they were slightly open, so I reached up as much as I could to cover his eyes before slowly leading him into the kitchen, making sure not to bump into anything so that he didn't open his eyes. I glanced my eyes around the kitchen to make sure everything was set up right, before I moved my hand from covering his eyes, that by the time we got to the kitchen, had already slipped down to his nose to watch his reaction at what I set up. I watched his eyes trail over the balloons, beers, and food I had scattered over the kitchen in an attempt to make a shifty bachelor party that I knew he didn't want, but I felt bad for making him do this, so I thought this would take his mind off it for a while. It's your bachelor party, I exclaimed, looking as he shook his head, a small smile playing on his face, as he pulled my hand that was still on his and pulled me in for a hug. Who gave you the beers? He asked, raising his eyebrows, resulting in me giving him a hit to his side. One night of normal before everything. If you're craving more of Emily's adventure, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that notification bell.